Blu-ray collection behind you?
It is indeed. I am a physical media person to the very end.
That is astounding. I have a decent collection myself, but it is not that epic. That is, you got a Criterion closet over there, brother. That's crazy. That's awesome.
I mean, yeah, I'm like until they stop producing them, I will grab as much as I can. I love it. I'm a
I'm with
theater
you.
and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real precariousness to digital media. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the way that streamers can just pull your content, and then if you don't have backups, it's just gone. So, in a weird way, when the internet started, we thought that everything would last forever in the internet, but there's actually so much content on the internet that things are ever more ephemeral, and actually, physical media seems to be outlasting the internet in many ways.
Yeah, no, it's always funny when people are like, "Oh, why don't you just like watch it on streaming?" And I'm like, I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's like it's never always there. So yeah,
100%. Also, the bit rate is different. I don't know. It's higher quality on physical media and everything. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I mean, I could talk about that for a very long time, but obviously, Lemonade Blessing. I'm just gonna say congratulations
Oh,
first of
thank
all.
you.
I mean, I always love the Tribeca Film Festival. I feel like the movies that they play just, they're always just yeah, like the different things that talking about cinema that we don't always see in cinema and always gives like, it gives such an, individual voice is able to be heard with them. And one of the things that I really loved about this was like it's walking that tightrope, I guess, between like raunchy comedy and sincere like spiritual crisis. And like,
Yeah.
how did you approach sort of, I guess, striking that tonal balance without like undermining the comedy or the drama at the same time?
I super appreciate this question. This is like something I talked about a lot when we were like making the film, that like I think what makes it what made it a hard film to make and what made it a really interesting challenge is the balance between the sacred and the profane. I really believe that. I mean, I remember in film school, the first film I made in one of my first semesters was like a guy who like has a panic attack and like runs away from his wedding and traps himself inside like a bathroom stall, and then some guys like trying to use the stall and they're like debating, and like he's trying to get the stall open and everything. It's like I really feel like you can have um you can take people's emotions and greater aspirations seriously while also acknowledging that we are material beings. We piss and we shit and we fuck, and that's all just as real as the fact that we have childhood wounds and we're trying to be the best we can and we're trying to transcend those things. And I think that there's so much humor to be found in cutting between things that are like in my mind equally valuable. You can have a childhood trauma and then cut to the kid, masturbating in a bathtub, 10 years later, and that's all equally valid. And I really like that herky jerk feeling because I think being a child of divorce, having parents who are very different, you're constantly in different environments, right? My mom was very religious, very principled. My dad was very not, and very like entrepreneurial, and kind of you can joke around with him and stuff. And so I think that the very contradictions at the heart of my parents' marriage and their different personalities came through me and my own personality and then was imbued into the film. I always
Mm.
feel very much pulled between two worlds. And so I wanted the tone of the film to reflect that dichotomy, I think.
Because I mean, I guess when it comes to like comedy around religion in any matter, like is there a way for you to like, I guess, define a successful laugh? Like, do you want the laughs to kind of like sting, or like, and is there like, I guess, joy in like the taboo, I guess, of that?
Such a great question. I will say, on like, of course the script is written in such a way that like comedy is in some sense like mathematical. Like there's literally like, from like negative to positive, where like one character wants something, another character wants another thing, right? So Lilith wants him to say fuck Jesus. He's gonna try a way to say fuck Jesus that is not saying fuck Jesus. So it's literally like he does the negative, she does the positive. Say it, don't say it, say it, don't say it. So obviously on the script level, it's designed with a certain amount of comic, structure in mind. But on set, like if I ever got the sense that someone was trying to be funny or like going for the laugh, I'd be like, don't even focus on that. Just go for the truth of it.
Mm,
Because I really do think that the unconscious mind and us just living truthfully is the funniest thing, because it
mm,
feels like we're just witnessing reality, and reality is really funny because we recognize things of ourselves in that. And so I would say all I tried to do on set was just create an environment where people could be truthful, and then also we rehearsed relatively extensively. We had 6 days of rehearsal. So on set, that gave us a very limited amount of time within our, indie film condensed 20-day shooting schedule to have, for every setup, one take of improv. And I'm happy to say that about 10 to 15% of the film's final dialogue is improvised. And I think that gives it a lot of life. And yeah, I hope that answers the question thoughtfully enough. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, it's interesting that you mentioned like mentioning Lilith, like, like we'll say she's particularly charged, I guess, and like, she's like the rebel and the provocateur in like challenging John's faith. Like, in any way, was her character like representing a broader critique of organized religion?
I would say that Lilith is definitely her own character, but I think the reason why she came about is because I was trying to find a way to externalize feelings that I had of like sexual shame in becoming sexually active when I was in Catholic high school, and the feelings of
Mm,
betrayal that I thought that was, I was almost betraying what I thought my really devout mom wanted for me. And,
mm,
I think sexual guilt gets dealt with in film very often. And of course, it's a visual thing. It's a behavioral thing. So that's interesting and that's engaging. But I thought one way we could take it to the next level was by crafting a character who was so angry about the sort of like sexist patriarchal religion that's been brought down upon her that she reacts against that by being sacrilegious, and we could merge the
mm,
sacrilegious with the sexual and literally have those two things together so that with every escalation of the sexual relationship there could be an escalation of the sacrilegious. So I think it was actually probably more of a way of externalizing internal conflict than it was a
mm.
critique of organized religion, because I actually don't really have that much beef with organized religion. I think it's just a man-made tool that, can be used for good or for ill, you know?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and on like mentioning those characters, I mean, Jake and Sky, like so
I
perfect in
love
these
them. I
roles.
love them. Yeah.
Like they just feel like this is exactly who they are, and like like he's got this vulnerability and like the unique awkwardness, and then what I really liked is like she avoided the kind of tropes we almost expect of like manic pixie dream girl or like the
Oh, I'm so
bad
glad
girl.
you
Like
feel
she
that way. Yeah.
avoids all that. Like so, I guess how did you find these two, and like how was it working with them to like really find like the nuances of these characters?
I will say when you cast, they say like it's 90% of it. That's so true. It's a cliche, but it's
Yeah.
absolutely true. I always talked about when I was working with my cast director, the idea of a spine or an essential quality. Basically,
Mm,
when people talk and when they communicate, there's just kind of one or two overarching like flavors that they give you when you interact with them. And that to me is their essential quality. And so I don't believe in, forcing a square peg into a round hole. I think that a lot of modern movie casting is misguided in that producers are looking at social media followings and they're pairing two popular, super hot people together, and they go to the movie, and then all their fans go and see the movie. And, these are talented people, but chemistry is an ineffable thing, and you have to cast for it. And I believe that chemistry comes from people recognizing in the other what they lack in themselves. And so, what I was really looking for, both when I wrote the characters and when I cast them, was to look for two people who had interesting commonalities, but also interesting differences. And,
mm,
Sky's a person who very much like emotes less in her face. Like she's much more internal, withdrawn, and she's great at just letting a little crack of what she's feeling through. Whereas Jake is more, it's just, oh my God, it's all in his face. Like this man cannot hide an emotion to save his life. And so, yeah, we did a traditional casting process. We looked through several hundred people. It was about 14, 15 hours of tapes. It was very clear that they were the people. They absolutely nailed it in the chemistry reads. They were doing such amazing improv. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of the process, just a traditional process, just trying to be open to who these people are and pairing them with the role so that it can feel like they were made for it.
it was like watching. It was like so interesting that you talked about like the social media side of things, because it's like that's something that I've read a lot about and been very frustrated at the fact that they're going more so for followers than actual talent. And like watching this, like it was almost like that. It reminded me of kind of like seeing like Superbad, where like you watch Emma Stone and like Michael Cera, and you just go, oh, these people are going to become massive stars. And that's how I felt watching Jake and Sky. Like you're just watching them going, this feels like the start of something so much bigger for them. Like
Oh my gosh.
they're so perfect in this. So
That's
just
such a sweet thing to
congratulations on
say.
that.
I'm really happy that you feel that way. Yeah, I always felt like it's so important for like a rising tide to lift all boats. And like I want to work with people who like we feel like we're all in the same camp and we want to fight, you
Mm,
know. So yeah, I'm really happy to say that like a lot of really talented people tried out for these roles and we turned away some people with literally like 10 to 15 million, you know, followers combined across all their social media. And they're incredible
mm,
performers, but they were not right for it. And it's just like,
yeah.
let's just go for truth, you know, like we're risking everything on this. Let's do it. Like let's like actually like go for truth and see where the chips fall. And it's super rewarding to hear that you feel this way. Cause I want it's like, yeah, why not? Let's try and make stars by doing something really, really cool rather than I don't know, right on the coattails of someone's prior success and
Mm,
you know then everyone's watching them they're thinking of their prior roles it's like I don't know just didn't make sense to me
yeah. I
so
mean,
thank you
well,
so much yeah
as you said about, like truth is like comedy sort of finds itself in the truth. You might as well go for truth with casting. And like, I guess like for you, was there a specific exploration for you at all? Like there's kind of this critique here of both the religious system and like coming of age. And like, did you look at this story as a way to comment on the pressures of the pressures of today's youth, or like even the difference of religious households and like the pressures put on boys versus girls? Was that something you sort of thought of exploring at all?
absolutely yeah I think a lot of these explorations end up being almost incidental to the pursuit of just doing something that feels like honest to my experience you know like your
Mm,
subconscious is so much smarter than your conscious brain so all I did was I just wrote down I didn't outline this one I wrote down memories from growing up and my high school memories and I paired together things which looked you know like they could be plot threads and then I wrote it
mm,
out of order and then slowly merged it and shaped it into something and so all of the themes in the story are just due to the fact that you know like I went to a Catholic high school it was really sexist and these were themes it takes a really long time to undo sexist messaging and you know it affects young boys it affects young girls but I was a young boy so I told a story about a young boy because that's kind of what I think I have the most authority to tell for better or worse you know
mm.
and so I do think those themes are present. It wasn't like I woke up and I was like, let's do a story about this. It's more like I followed my heart, and then afterwards I looked at what happened, and I was like, oh, I guess okay, it looks like these things are present in it, you know.
And I mean, just quickly before I wrap up, like looking back on this film, do you feel there's a sequence or a moment that like captures your voice as a filmmaker the most clearly?
Oh, that's so interesting. Voice is such an interesting thing. I think, oh gosh, there's a few answers to that. I think juxtapositions are really strong. Like I love the editing juxtapositions. Like I do think I love that we established the film's grammar within 2 minutes. Like by the one
Mm,
minute 40 second mark, you're doing the hard cut that jumps 10 years. And I felt I really enjoyed that. But like from a visual language standpoint, the panic attack scene with the confession I was so happy with the fact that the storyboards for that like worked out. Like I have them right here. And give me 1 second. You know, like I'm just so like happy that like everything that I was kind of like planning with these storyboards like ended up like coming through into reality. Oh my God, sorry, this thing is ridiculous. Like
you're right. I can see
everything
it.
everything that like we planned ended up coming to fruition and it was a really hard sequence we shot it over 6 different days across state lines
Mm,
part of it shot in New Jersey part of it shot in New York so much continuity to keep in mind but it was so important to me that we were able to heighten the drama of what he was feeling internally because I think that there is something epic and grand in the intimate and yes maybe there is some humor in the fact that it's such a bombastic score for something that you know as silly as what's ostensibly like throwing a wafer in a toilet but like it's real. Those feelings are real. And I really like the subjectivity of taking what one person feels seriously and like projecting
mm.
that, giving people a simulation of that experience. So I think the panic attack is probably one of the best like simulations of that subjectivity. And then also that hard cut jumping 10 years is also a bit of like a you know my impishness because I am a little playful like that I am a little silly like that and I don't take myself that seriously you know, at the end of the day. So I think both of those together, I think is probably, I guess, the thing most representative of voice.
Oh well, I mean, I went into this obviously knowing nothing because it hasn't really been shown anywhere. But like I loved it so much. It just reminded me of like the kind of films that I've seen growing up. And once I sort of knew what Lemonade Blessing, then I was like, okay, that's great. And
Hey,
like
yeah.
I'm just so like as I said, like Tribeca just there's so many exciting voices to come out, and like like what you made with this film is incredible. Like everybody should be so proud, because I know what it takes to make a film. So I'm so excited to see where you go from here, where this cast goes, because it's amazing. So thank you so much for taking the time out.
Oh, are you kidding me? Thank you for taking the time to watch it and talk to me. This is so great. This is such a pleasure. Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate it.